Extreme fear is back in the market, and over the last few weeks we have seen nothing but red. And if you're using leverage like I am, those red days, they hit different. I made a video 6 months ago showing off my 600k margin portfolio, and so far that portfolio has ballooned to a whopping $750,000. And so in today's video, I want to show you exactly how that portfolio is holding up and why I am not panic selling everything just yet. So let's not waste any time and look at the raw numbers. Like I mentioned, my total portfolio value of just my margin account is $750,000. My margin loan, as you can see, is around $260,000. So normally my rule is having this margin loan be at most 30% of my total value. And I am very comfortable with this 30% number. And that's because the market has to fall by 60, maybe 70% until I get margin called. And since 100% of my investments are in VEQT, the reality is that 70% drawdown is unlikely to happen. However, if you do the math on the numbers that we have, you'll see that my current utility is around 37%. So why is that? Well, there are two main reasons for it. The first one, it's kind of obvious, the market's down. VEQT is down 8%. Since margin is like a double-edged sword, your lows are even lower. And my total portfolio in just the past month has dropped by 10%. And as your portfolio drops, your margin utility increases. And so that's one factor why my margin utility has kind of peaked at 35%. The other major reason is that I took a $40,000 loan from my margin account to max out my registered accounts. So my TFSA, FHSA, and RRSP during the beginning of the year. And so if you combine those two reasons, that's the main factors to why my margin utility is close to 35% now. So having said that, am I worried about this? To be honest, I am not. At least not yet. Like I mentioned, I took a big chunk of a margin loan from myself. And so I expect to get a big chunk of that money back after I file my taxes. And so I expect to get around $15,000 from the CRA. And that money is going to go straight back to paying down my margin loan. And if you add that $15,000 back into my margin account, you can see that my margin loan would be closer to the 30% sweet spot that I want. Frankly, I think it would still be elevated, but at least it helps a tiny bit. As for my general margin strategy, to give a quick recap, if you guys haven't watched my previous video on this, generally what I do is I put in $1,000 worth of my paycheck into my margin account every month. And Wealthsimple is the platform that I use for my margin investing. And it has this awesome automation tool that you can buy a VEQT or essentially any stock you want on margin. Keeping that 30% margin utility in mind, what I generally do is every month I set that automation to buy $1,300 worth of VEQT every month. And you can see that since I have these two automations in place, you can see that roughly my margin utility would stay around that 30%. However, this margin utility can deviate from my 30% sweet spot in cases when the market falls. And so having said that, I'm not looking to change the automations that I have so far. I don't like changing my strategy. I like being as passive as possible and dollar cost averaging as much as I can, especially when the market sentiment is so fearful. And so this might increase my margin utility to high 30s or even low 40s. And that's something that I'm okay to stomach for now. Things might change 1 month from now if the market drops another 20%. But so far, I'm going to stay the course. So why am I not panicking? Could be a normal question to ask. And it fundamentally comes down to 3 pillars that I have. The first one being that I am 29 years old. And so I have a 30-year investing horizon. And so any money that I invest in my margin accounts, or to be honest, any accounts, I don't see needing it for the next 3 decades. So any of this short-term volatility doesn't really bother me. My second pillar is that I have a very good emergency fund. I have around 6 months worth of cash sitting in my savings account. And so even if the market falls by another 10%, I do not see me using any of that money since I have 6 months of it in my savings account that I can pull out anytime I want. The third one being the job that I work at. I am a software engineer that works in a tech company. There have been layoffs in my industry, but in the worst case, God forbid that I do get laid off, I expect to get a nice severance from that. Also, there is employment insurance that I will be eligible for. And if you consider these 2 benefits and you combine that with the 6 months emergency fund that I have, I roughly have 1 year long buffer that will allow me to find a new job. Because of all of these 3 pillars, I think it gives me a strong advantage of kind of decoupling myself from this short-term volatility and just stick to the dollar cost average plan that I have so far. Yeah, so to wrap this video up, like I mentioned, my portfolio in the last month has dropped 10%. And certainly this isn't fun. But I'm trying to decouple myself as much as possible from what is happening in the market. I have a long-term vision that I'm hoping to stick with. Let me know what you guys think of my strategy of just sticking and continuing to use leverage in this market downturn. I hope you found this update helpful, and I will see you guys next time.